The time now, 5:08. An inquiry launched by MPs in the aftermath of a shooting on Skye, which left one man dead and two other people seriously injured, has finished taking evidence. The Scottish Affairs Committee has been considering whether the laws around gun ownership should be tightened. The SNP MP Pete Wishart chairs the committee. Good morning to you.
Hi Martin, good morning.
Morning. Obviously there is a man charged with murder after the incident on Skye. Let's not go into any specific detail on that, but give us a feel for how this inquiry came about, what the purpose of it is, what are you trying to do?
Well, we were very concerned after the shooting in Skye, quite obviously, and what we wanted to do was just to have a look overall at firearm licensing arrangements, just to see if they were fit for purpose, whether there's anything in looking at this we could conclude or recommend that could improve the situation. And what we've heard, I think, in the course of the two evidence sessions that we've had on this issue is very compelling and powerful evidence. We've heard of the impacts in the community. We've looked at the current arrangements for gun licence. And I think the first thing to say, and to reassure everybody who's listening to this, is that we have amongst the most stringent and robust gun licence arrangements in the whole of the world in Scotland. This is obviously in the follow-up to what happened in Dunblane on the existing legislation. But there's always things that we could do, and I think it's worthwhile just to have a look at the current situation and see if we could do anything just to ensure that these very, very rare, exceptional cases remain or even become even more rare and exceptional.
Yeah, and reading through some of the testimony, there are a couple of gaps or potential loopholes you've noticed, concerns that people can basically trawl around for references if they want to get a gun licence. What's the alternative to that?
Well, absolutely, and that really concerned the committee when we heard that, people need two referees in order to ensure that they can make their applications for a gun licence. And what we heard is that people actually went to their mates, to their friends, touted around to ensure that they would get referees who would make sure that they would be put forward for a gun licence arrangement. And so what we've had a look at is the whole arrangement for referees and references, and just to see if there's any use or fit for purpose. And I think we'll be saying something about this when we construct a report and make these recommendations and conclusions, because that was part of the setup and arrangements that we were most unhappy about.
Yeah, and one of the other concerns is that there should be some kind of hotline, a means for people to report their worries about somebody who owns a firearm who others think perhaps shouldn't be in charge of one. The point was made to you, though, was it not, that, we're being told at the moment we can barely afford to run the 101 service at the moment, the emergency service. How can we afford to run something like that?
Well, the police are obviously stretched, and there are issues to do with resourcing, but this is something that's come up consistently, not just in our inquiry, but previous inquiries that's been done by the Home Affairs Select Committee at Westminster. It was a suggestion that was raised by Mick North, who works for the Gun Control Network, and his daughter was tragically killed at Dunblane. I think it's something worth looking at, because I think the flagging arrangements are again something that when we had a look at this, we're a little bit concerned about, and I think we've got to make it easier for people to, if they have got concerns about somebody with a gun licence, somebody who perhaps have demonstrated or exhibited behaviours which would lead to concern, I think there must be an opportunity for that to be flagged up and reported. So I think the hotline is certainly something that we'll be looking at when we're putting this report together, and I think it's something that we'll consider very seriously.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, this, because mental health all feeds into this as well, doesn't it? Police are saying that mental illness won't necessarily disqualify you from having a gun licence, because there is a concern that people might let mental health problems go undiagnosed, might not come forward for fear that they'd lose a licence they need. I mean, it's complex, this, isn't it?
Absolutely, and these are the sort of tricky tensions that we're trying to navigate in the course of this inquiry and report. And you're right, I mean, people will experience bad mental health, poor mental health in the course of their life. That doesn't mean that they should be necessarily excluded from holding a necessary gun licence if they work in the countryside, for example. So we are looking at all this. I think that's an area of work that we will look in is the relationship between GPs, the assessment of mental health, and how that is then passed on to the police, who are the ultimate arbiters and have the final decision about who gets a gun licence. So
right.
We want to try and unpack a lot of that and just see if there's anything that we could hopefully conclude and recommend that would make that situation better. But there is a number of issues we have to look at with concerning that.
In a sentence, Pete, you finished taking evidence. When are you likely to report?
Well, we're hoping to report certainly before Christmas, and we're looking to do that in the next month.
All right, Pete Wishart, MP, thank you very much indeed for your time.